Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Weekly Grab. I am CJ, and here we have.
Oh, they're gonna say my name for me.
Oh,
Joel.
we got
JB.
we got Joel Bryant, and we are back with the Weekly Grab. This is a show that last year Joel and I did for about 9 months straight. We interviewed folks, folks that were running for office, folks that were already in office. We talked about the news every week, and for a while we were starting to get overwhelmed with our daily workload, but we're back now. Joel was running a campaign last year. I got a new job that required my total focus, and we're in a much better spot now, and we have more time to commit to it and bring a great value to you guys. As for what you can expect for this podcast going forward, this is just going to be a lighthearted, fun podcast where you can hear young conservatives like me and Joel. Joel's always been a young conservative since I've known him for like 3 years. I've been a libertarian leaning conservative since I was in high school, basically. And you're going to kind of hear our perspectives on the large stories
no
going
more
on.
angry CJ?
Yeah, no more angry CJ. But you're gonna hear some of our perspectives on some of the main stories of the day. I can't wait to chat with you guys about that. Hear some of your feedback, what's going on, but also some stories unique to South Carolina. And I think that's what made our podcast really unique last time. Was not only were we able to chat about the national stories of the day on a high level, because Joel and I both work on some pretty high level campaigns, but we were also able to chat about stories unique to South Carolina and right in our backyard. And we'd love to hear anything you guys have to say about the stories we're talking about. One of the comments I already see, wondered where you've been. Yeah, so our podcast, we've been off for like 4 months. We're back every Thursday at 7. Join us. It's going to be great. We got an awesome special guest lined up for next week. But yeah, Joel, glad to be back. Glad you're on, man. How was it without the podcast? Was life more sad or?
I was lost emotionally. I didn't know what I had to make music again.
Yeah. Had to get back to the grind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a couple new features we've got for the Weekly Grab, and I'm going to kind of run through those before we get to the stories of the day. Definitely want to get to what's going on in Ukraine and with Russia. Definitely want to talk about the latest with the Canadian trucker situation. Definitely want to talk about some of the latest in the Low Country. And, we're going to keep it a nice and simple, short show. But if you guys would like to leave a message for us, go to anchor.fm/the Weekly Grab, and you'll be able to leave a voicemail message for the Weekly Grab. We'll be able to play that voicemail message for you. That's what's really cool about this new feature. So anchor.fm/the Weekly Grab, and you can get that link in our Facebook group. And definitely join us and leave us a voicemail. We'll play it. Also, the podcast, as you can see now, is live on not only just Facebook and YouTube, but we're also live on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere else you can get a podcast. We're live there.
And we made the logo after that graphic, so we ended up upgrading the logo after, as you can see.
I like that new logo.
You're welcome.
You see it on the top right. It looks good. I like it, man. Also, a couple things before we hop in. I guess we can start off. Do you want to start off the news of the day, Joel, or you want to start off, the latest stuff going on with Russia right now? That's kind of the biggest thing right now.
Let's start with the Russia, because I know everyone's going to want to know what's going down with that. So let's start with that.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Putin has been steamrolling. He's sending peacekeeping tanks into Ukraine right now as we speak, and some of this wartime talk has really hurt the stock market today. The Dow was down over 700 points. There's a lot of crazy headlines going around. The Ukrainian president Zelensky's hinting at pursuing nukes. It's kind of an unfortunate situation. Lot of different viewpoints to consider. Joel, can you kind of walk us through what Germany's trying to do to slow down Russia with this Nord Stream 2?
Germany has decided to freeze the Nord Stream 2 gas project as the crisis deepens. Maybe they saw Biden's press conference where he said he was going to shut it down. They were like, "Nah, bro, we'll do it for you." But yeah, that's big news.
Yeah, and so it's part of a unified act of sanctions that right now NATO countries are trying to impose on Russia. A few different factors to consider here. The part that Russia is trying to take of Ukraine, the majority of the people there speak Russian. The majority of the people there are Eastern Orthodox Christian. and the majority of them are Russian separatists. They believe they should be a part of Russia. So that's crazy. There's a lot of people that are wanting Russia to invade from Ukraine. That's nuts. Then there's a lot of people here in the United States that are saying, we should go take up arms and send, our boys, our Marines, our Army, our Special Forces to defend Ukraine, and they're not a member of NATO. So I think there's definitely some debate on that. Definitely let us know in the comments. Do you think we should be protecting Ukraine? Do you think Ukraine should be able to join NATO? Let us know in the comments. Definitely interested, and we can show the comments up here, and we'd be glad to have you as part of the conversation. But before we get there, Joel, I mean, what are your initial thoughts? Do you think we should protect Ukraine?
It's tough because I'm normally I try to be like anti-war, but it's like, do we really want to let Russia take back over what used to be part of the Soviet Union? And
Good
it's
point.
like, there's a lot of negative that could come from that.
There is a lot of negative.
I don't think we should put troops on the ground, but I don't see what the harm would be in fighting from from afar standpoint.
Okay.
Helping from afar.
Helping from afar. So that's a perfectly reasonable statement. And when Trump was in office, I felt like a lot of these moves really weren't tried because I felt like he kind of implemented the Reagan strategy of peace through strength. We are so strong. We're ramping up our military so much that if you cross this red line, you're not going to want to have to deal with the giant force that is the American military. And whenever you're wielding that power and that strength and you're not using it, I feel like that's what Reagan did in the 80s with the Soviet Union. He ramped up, the military so much, ramped up military spending by hundreds of millions of dollars, and the Soviet Union couldn't compete and their economy collapsed. That could be something to consider here. Peace through strength. Whereas Biden, I feel like, is seen on the world stage as weak. And, this is the second time under Biden that we've had to evacuate an American embassy. So he's showing weakness on the world stage. And I don't think you have to go to war with Russia to show strength. Exactly. Any thoughts on that?
Exactly. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Peace by strength.
Peace through strength.
We have a new comment. Yeah.
New comment. We should not be the world police. Why spill more American blood in foreign soil? Sell them arms and even assist with strategic decisions. I think that's kind of what you're saying, Joel. Kind of like helping from afar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully these sanctions start working. We mentioned, if you're just joining, Germany's shutting down that Nord Stream 2 gas project. And that's the pipeline, if you remember, that Biden approved right when he came in office. I believe it was February of last year.
Yep.
While our pipeline here in the United States, they shut our pipeline down. Biden did immediately, and I think that cost a few thousand jobs. So like right when he came into office, he shuts down our pipeline, but then lifts sanctions on the Russian pipeline. I don't really understand that.
Nope.
Glad to see you guys back on YouTube. Thanks for watching, Joey. We appreciate you being here. Appreciate you commenting. Appreciate you engaging and being a part of the conversation with us. Joel, what else is going on in the world today, man?
Well, what's our story of the day? What's our story of the day, CJ?
I mean, I feel like the story of the day is what's going on in our backyard. We on this podcast, we like to talk about stories unique to South Carolina. And, this is pretty big news. It actually made it, our local story made it into the national news.
The national discussion. Yep.
Yeah, so the story I'm talking about, of course, you can read at somervillenews.net. If you didn't know, we're sending out weekly newsletters that are going out at somervillenews.net. Join that email list. Go to somervillenews.net and, make sure to join our email list. It's going out every Friday. We got 6 to 8 stories that'll come out a week. I'll put that link on the bottom there in the ticker. But yeah, Dorchester Councilwoman Harriet Holman switches parties to become a Republican for our upcoming election. That is huge news because she's the final Democrat on that Dorchester Council. So
is this the big party switch the liberals always talk about?
I think so. And so this actually became, so Harriet will actually be on Fox News tomorrow morning at like 5 a.m. Got another comment before we hop into this. Let me just read that. Oh, and by the way, whoever this is, you can enter your name and we can see your name and profile picture. There should be instructions in the link so we can see you up here. We don't need boots in the ground. What we need is suits in D.C. to rally and use their political power to engage in talks and see what can be accomplished first. I like it. I like it. The diplomatic approach. We don't need people to die over land. We're civilized
Yeah.
now. I agree with what they're saying there. So back to the story. Harriet Holman switched parties. So she was the last Democrat on Dorchester County Council. She's got a reelection. She's been in office since 2018. And this lady is a 28-year military veteran.
Wow.
And so she comes out and she says, I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me. I'm a capitalist. I believe in pro-life principles. And, I believe in safe neighborhoods and creating jobs and opportunities. And so, if that's not your political views, that's totally fine. But today, the reaction was kind of crazy. And that's kind of what I wanted to chat with you about, Joel. Today, some of the local Democrat officials, like the former Charleston Democratic Party chairman, him and another Democrat political consultant were equating this to Jim Crow. And they're saying that, she violated some election law, which I don't believe is true. And, what are your thoughts on the Democrats trying to fearmonger and race bait whenever someone leaves the Democratic Party?
I guess they're trying to save face with their base somehow. That's the only way I can think.
Save face with the base. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and it's kind of frustrating because this could be an opportunity for the local Democrats to look in the mirror and say, hey, maybe we have gone a little bit too far to the left. Yeah. Maybe these big government policies, raising taxes, leading, inflation, crime, immigration, maybe these are important, and I think they are. I feel like inflation right now is a huge issue for families. I read in the Washington Post the other day that each family is affected by $276 a month due to the current inflation. That's directly as a result of these massive spending bills. So you're welcome on the show if you're a Democrat, but we definitely want to talk about those policies. It's really interesting, this Harriet Holman story, because not only is she switching parties to become a Republican, but she's also an African American woman, and so it's going to be interesting to follow that, see how the story progresses. She's not tried to make it about race, which I think is awesome. And one of the things that the local Democrats are saying is they're saying that the local Republicans talked her into this, but it was clear from her video, and you can see her video in our news group. You can take a look at facebook.com/group/Somerville News, and you can see the whole video. And she talks about, I'm a capitalist, I'm pro-life, I believe in creating jobs and having safe neighborhoods. Those are principles that led her to make that decision. It's not like someone talked her into this, and I thought that was kind of disrespectful to her. But yeah, any thoughts on Harriet Holman, man? That's a huge deal right in our backyard.
No, that's huge news. I'm honestly excited to hear it. Lately, the last couple of years, the other side, the left, the Democrat Party, has definitely been kind of captured more by the radical side, and you kind of see a lot of people lately from the middle grounds kind of leaning more to the GOP lately, kind of coming on over and taking a gander and exploring. It's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it is cool to see, and we'll see what happens. We'll follow her voting record, and this is something that we want to keep an eye on for sure. Joel, can you tell us about this local author who is I guess she's from Somerville, and she is.
So there is a local author. I'm trying to remember what her name was, but she has a book that was was on number 9 on the New York bestsellers list, and it's being picked up and it's being turned into a series for HBO. Which is
that's
extremely
really cool.
interesting. Yeah, I think it was A24 Entertainment is the production company that was what ended up picking up the book. But that's really cool that somebody from where we're at that's doing that.
Yeah, kudos to her. I won't spend too much time on the story, but definitely cool to see. If you want to read more about it, somervillenews.net. We get that weekly newsletter out every week. You don't want to miss that weekly newsletter.
Nope.
Make sure to sign up for it at somervillenews.net. Got some interesting other segments. So I want to preview this segment because it definitely needs an explanation, Joel. But just your first thoughts on this, this graphic here. I mean, what is your initial reaction to this segment that we're looking at right now?
I love it. The Low Country Cage Match, brought to you by Verizon Wireless. No, I'm kidding. Don't sue us. Don't sue us, Verizon. I love you. But no, this is going to be where, it's one of the biggest matchups in South Carolina right now. So it'll be interesting to see how it outfolds here as we head through election year.
Yeah. So basically, going forward, we're going to be covering this race really closely. And the race that we're talking about, of course, is the first congressional district race. Your congresswoman or man, um, I guess there's no men really running right now. That's okay. But anyways, it's going to be either one of these two women. The Democrat's not going to win. The district has been redrawn. It's a +9 Republican district now, whereas before our district was a swing district. One thing that we're going to be doing is putting up polls. And in our group, we put up this poll, and I think it's really interesting to look at. Um, Undecided was number one for the first week of this poll, and then the second week, the Democrats were sharing it in their out-of-state groups, and so that's why Dr. Annie Andrews is number one. But I think the real number one here is undecided. A lot of those votes at the top of the poll, if you're watching with us on the live stream, those are votes. A lot of them are from out of state. I went through and looked. But I think it's interesting that Mace gets 5 votes, Arrington gets 69 votes, Piper Loomis gets 38 votes, undecided gets 70 votes. So this is going to play out very interestingly. A lot of folks are upset with Nancy Mace over her vote to not decertify the election results on January 6th. And I think that could spill. Joey says he's not a fan of Arrington at all. Josue was wanting to let us know he was watching. But yeah, this is going to be fun. So this is just kind of like a preview of this segment that we're going to do. We're not going to do a deep dive into the election tonight. We got some other stories we want to chat about, but I thought this graphic was pretty hilarious because it is a cage match. These are two very aggressive women who are fighting for this Congress seat. Trump has endorsed Katie Arrington. Mace has previously worked on Trump's campaign before. Mace has got a few million in the bank. Katie Arrington's going to raise millions of dollars, and they're going to be fighting for your vote. And so these women probably will end up joining us on the live stream at some point, Joel. So I just want to kind of keep covering this and bringing as much value. When things happen, we're going to update you on this. SomervilleNews.net puts out about 7 to 10 articles a week. And just stay tuned here because we're really interested in this. I know a lot of you guys are interested in this. So we're going to make sure to give you the most up-to-date information. Before we hit that next segment, Joel, I think we should chat with the good people at home about Nug of Knowledge. So Nug of Knowledge is who is a sponsor of the show. The show is actually brought to you by Nug of Knowledge, who makes premium cannabis. You can find the best 100% natural CBD, CBG, and Delta-8 THC over at nugofknowledge.com. They've got flower, vapes, and edibles, and even more strains and flavors on the way. This is a great way to get your cannabis 100% legally and support the show and the Liberty Movement all at the same time. Go to nugofknowledge.com and use promo code Somerville to get 10% off today's purchase. So that is promo code Somerville to get 10% off today's purchase. Expand your mind and live your best life with Nug of Knowledge premium cannabis at nugofknowledge.com. Promo code Somerville to support the show.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
And then give it to me. Anyway.
Let's hop into that next story. Looks like we got a comment here. Let's see. Why would Mace have objected to the certification? Joey says that's a good question. If you have an answer for Joey, let us know in the comments. The argument that Trump has with Mace is that Trump wanted her to decertify the election results. Josue with another comment here. Trump wanted her to vote to decertify the election results because he thought that there was mass fraud that happened. Mace felt that wasn't the role of Congress and that she thought that she was fulfilling her constitutional duty by certifying. So there's definitely passionate arguments on both sides of that. Any thoughts on that subject? Do you have, Joel?
I mean, in between on that, I think there was a lot of shenanigans that did kind of go on. There was a lot of things that got passed in the name of COVID and COVID safety that kind of didn't get brought through the legislature like it's supposed to in the legal process. When you change election rules and election procedures, it's supposed to go to the legislature. A lot of states didn't. And so I think it should have gotten a little bit more looked into. I think that should have been something that was handled before it had to get to a decertification or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a tough one. We definitely want to know what you guys think. Josue says, have to check out Nug of Knowledge. Nug of Knowledge is awesome. They've got great products, and all the profits go to helping criminal justice reform efforts. So that's really cool. Their website, it kind of details what nonprofits they send their profits to. It's a pretty cool setup. One of the stories that's been kind of driving me nuts, let me pull that comment down, is what's been going on in Canada. Have you guys been seeing this? What's been going on in Canada?
Yeah.
So everybody knows about
Get
the
your
freedom.
trucks out because it's
Get
time.
your trucks out. It's time to honk. But what's been going on in Canada?
Put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, I mean,
sell it
so,
on SomervilleNews.com.
No, we can sell some shirts on SomervilleNews.com, but
That.
so we're going to show you the latest with the trucker protest. Everybody's kind of followed the Freedom Convoy. They were protesting the vaccine mandates coming from the federal government, coming from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And a lot of folks are having to choose between their job and a vaccine. It's been kind of like the biggest storyline over the last 6 months.
Yep.
And, you know, with efficacy of vaccine, I won't even get into that right now. But what I will get into is this protest. So I talked about last year a lot on these streams about how I don't trust big government and I don't trust police because they have too much power in some situations. And this is a perfect example of what I used to talk about last year. The police sometimes will choose their job over following, I guess, what's right. They'll just follow orders rather than doing what's right. And that's what I feel that is going on in the situation. So the latest from Canada, and a mayor from Ottawa, where a lot of these protests are going down, wants to sell the trucks seized from the Freedom Convoy protesters. And he's claiming that Justin Trudeau's Emergency Act from last week gives him that authority. That is absolutely insane. So not only are they not respecting the right to and freedom to protest peacefully, and they're brutalizing a lot of these protesters, and they're shutting down their inalienable right to free speech. I know they don't have a constitution, but I believe human rights include free speech, and that every human has the right to free speech, whether they live in America or not. And so those rights are getting infringed on. Now their property rights are being infringed on. They're basically infringing on every kind of right that you have. They're not letting you protest. Protesters are getting trampled. They're forcing you to take a vaccine or lose your job. And now they're going to seize the trucks and sell them to make up for the money that they lost during the protest. I mean, what are your thoughts here, Joel?
It's disgusting. I mean, why? I mean, you're already trying to take their truck. Don't sell their truck, bro. That's terrible. And those things are not like cheap either. People that like, because I know a few people that do trucks and stuff. They cost money. You pay for it out of your pocket. Like you buy the truck a lot of times.
They do. They finance these trucks themselves, you know, and so these guys are making a genuine effort to make themselves heard. And rather than hearing them, Justin Trudeau and you know the left wing in Canada just seems to be cracking down and taking it even further and further. And this story is just unbelievable. The mayor wants to sell the seized trucks. That's just unbelievable. We're gonna keep following that. Anybody who cares about freedom, whether you're Republican, Democrat, whatever you consider yourself, should keep an eye on this, and we're going to keep an eye on this story as well. I think we went through all our stories, Joel. I don't want to keep the podcast too late, but I kind of want to do preview next week of what we have.
Let's preview it.
So let's preview it, man. So we're going to have a guest. It's going to be Harriet Holman, most likely. We're confirming the time, but we're going to talk about, you know, some of the issues that led her to walk away from the Democratic Party. So that's going to be interesting. Join us for that. And then you won't want to miss our segment on Nancy Mason, Katie Arrington, Low Country Cage Match. Won't want to miss that. Let's take a look. Trudeau equals government overreach, Joey says. Kaylin says that's awful to the trucker protest. Joey says S-150. Yeah, that's important. So yeah, a few weeks ago, we used to cover this a lot, but the South Carolina Compassionate Care Act passed the South Carolina Senate. Huge deal. That happened a couple weeks back. The medical cannabis bill is currently in the state house. Governor McMaster has previously come out and said he's opposed this bill, but this year he's running against Joe Cunningham. Yeah. Joe Cunningham's forcing the issue on the marijuana issue. He did a press conference in the state house the day that they took the vote in the state Senate. And I think that with the polling looking about 70% for it, 30% against it, we might see McMaster sign this thing if it gets out of the House. So that would be a huge win for folks who support medical freedom and medical cannabis. Let's see what Josue says
Got a new
here.
comment.
Just goes to show how socialist Canada is. Seize the means of production, trucks from the convoy, and redistribute it. That's exactly right. That's the definition of communism or socialism: seizing the means of production and redistribution of wealth. We're seeing that play out in Canada. And if you are a socialist, we'd love to chat with you. But I'm just not liking how things are playing out in Canada
Yeah,
right now.
same. And
It's
all
pure
for
evil.
a vaccine that doesn't even have 100% science behind it.
Yeah, I mean, the efficacy of them is under question, right? And
Hmm.
and there's a new variant every 3 months, and you're going to need a booster every 3 months. You're going to take boosters for the rest of your life now, it looks like. And while the argument of COVID is starting to be lost by the COVID, I don't want to insult anybody, but the folks that push the COVID narrative, a lot of their arguments are being lost, and so now you're seeing them crack down. We saw what happened in Australia, where police
Mm.
put protesters in camps, jailed protesters. Now we see police doing the same thing, brutalizing people in Canada. This is insane, and this is something I was talking about all last year, how
Yeah.
sometimes we shouldn't 100% back the blue. We should back transparent and limited government. And if we have transparent and limited government, then the police won't infringe on our rights. But we're seeing police infringing on rights in Canada, and don't think
Yep.
that can't happen here. It absolutely can.
They can.
So next week, potential interview with Harriet Holman. We'll be letting you guys know about that. Got to work around her schedule. She's gonna be on Fox News tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. It's gonna be amazing. Switched from a Democrat to a Republican here in Dorchester County and went to be a national story. That's going to be awesome. Also, we've got some local races happening that we're going to start covering as
Yeah.
well. So March 8th, it's less than 2 weeks away. There's a special election happening in Somerville, District 97. A lot of eyes on that. There's also a special election happening March 27th for Hugh Leatherman's old seat, Senate District 31. The Republican candidate there, an African American gentleman named Mike Rickenbach, owns 3 car dealerships up there, is an amazing Christian man, and he's running for that seat. So we're going to be covering that very closely as well. But we'll also stay on top of the big stories like Russia, Canada, what's going on with Biden and inflation. So we hope you'll join us. We're glad you did. Any closing thoughts, Joel, before we wrap it up and kick it at next week?
Drop a like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, family. Get in here. Enjoy the show. Thursdays, 7:00 p.m. This
Thursdays
is
at
a
7?
special day of a different schedule because it's Tuesday. We had to work around some things.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, we're thankful that you joined us, and definitely subscribe, like, leave us a comment, leave us a 5-star review on
Yep.
whatever platform.
Spotify podcast. Are we on Google Podcasts, CJ?
We're going to be on Google Podcasts tonight, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm going to upload it right after this. But yeah, man, I think I'm going to go ahead and play us out. So thank you so much for joining, everybody. This has been the Weekly Grab Podcast. We'll see you next Thursday at 7 o'clock. So glad you joined us. Definitely won't want to miss that Nancy Mason, Katie Arrington segment. That's going to be awesome. God bless you. Have a great rest of your night. We are signing.